Well, if I told you that college athletics has changed more in the last 3 years than it has in the previous 100, and where it is next year may be radically different than where it is this year. So why so many changes in college athletics, and what does the future hold? Will players unionize? What will the fan experience be? And what will the Supreme Court do about the landscape in college athletics? Gordon Voit joins us again this week to talk about the future of college athletics, money in college athletics, and what it means for schools, players, and fans. All that's coming up right here, right now. I'm Sam Chen, and this is Face the Issues. Good evening and welcome to Face the Issues. I'm Sam Chen. College athletics in the last 3 years has changed more than possibly the previous century combined. And we've talked extensively on this show in the past about what's driven those changes. But what fans want to know is what comes next. Will they still be able to enjoy those Saturday tailgates before the football game? What about the transfer portal? Will players unionize? There's no one better to talk about these topics with than Gordon Voit. He is the founder of 3D Athlete, a former sports anchor and Heisman Trophy voter, and he joins us here again tonight. Gordon, welcome back to Face the Issues. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Sam. Thanks so much. We had a lot to talk about last episode. Fired up for episode number 2 on NIL.
Same. And for those who weren't with us last week, you can catch all the episodes on Lighthouse TV. Go to our website, check it out. Gordon has done a great job, actually over many seasons for us, of breaking down some of the biggest questions in athletics, not just collegiately, but as the landscape has changed in collegiate and professional athletics, he's been with us every step of the way to help us understand what that's going to be like for players, coaches, teams, and of course for us fans. And so if you missed last week's episode, you can check it out online. Gordon, let's jump right into this. Last week we were talking about where college athletics has come from, and this idea of the model that really ran in college athletics until 2021, and then some of the shifts that we've seen since then. Can you give a quick recap of just what is the model with finances, and specifically in college athletics? Where are we today, right here in 2024?
So the old model was, oh yeah, you get compensated. It's called tuition and meals, and we'll give you some money for your apartment. And then, there's heat from society. Okay, now it's cost of attendance, so we'll pay for some flights for your family so that you're not losing money. When the whole world knew that a lot of these athletes were worth way more money than even a really nice, maybe $100,000 a year compensation package in kind with tuition. Everybody knows that athletes were worth way more money than that. That Derrick Rose was worth way more money to the University of Memphis than the $24,000 tuition or whatever it was. And so we start to have black markets open up. You know, athletes are just getting money under the table because they're incredibly valuable. Schools want them. Schools want them on their campuses. And then the courts start to get involved. So Supreme Court case in 2021 rules 9-0 that schools can't limit education-related benefits to athletes. So they can't juice up the scholarship package. But the justices in their judgments say, hey, this is about way more than just increased tuition. These athletes are not able to test their market in the open, and that is fundamentally un-American. And so then we have a whole bunch of lawsuits that start breaking apart the NIL rules that were passed in 2021 that said, okay, you can be on the Wheaties box, but you can't get money for attending Texas A&M or Oregon. You have to sign with Oregon, and then you can start courting sponsorships, but it's got to be because you're a valuable, promotional outlet for them. It can't be because you're attending University of Oregon. The whole world knew that it was because the school wanted them to attend. And so now we're starting to see that NIL legislation or the NIL rule system that was put in place, the guidelines, that is all coming crashing down because of many cases that are pending, ranging from unionization to the employee status. So The NCAA might have thought that it was out of the woods in 2021 when they said that athletes can receive compensation for their name, image, and likeness. But as every, politician or every bench liberal conservative is ruling, that's un-American. How are you not able to test your fair market value in college athletics? These athletes are making their schools billions. They should be able to test that. And so that's what we're seeing now. That brings us to 2024 when all of this thing is about to go.
Let's get into that. I want to start with the unionization bit. I mean, one of the things we've talked about on this show before and that you see in sports world is the question of whether or not these athletes are employees in the way that they are professionally. And this has kind of been the struggle. You mentioned before the NCAA doesn't want to go this route. There's, the difference with like the sponsorships. You're on the Wheaties box. You're not being employed per se by the university that you play for or you attend. And unionization seems to indicate employment, right? This is where people unionize their employees, and they unionize. Dartmouth University, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gordon, I believe it's just one of their teams. It's not the athletics department as a whole at Dartmouth. I believe it's the men's basketball program that has unionized. What does that look like at Dartmouth, and is that something you expect to see at other universities moving forward?
Very interesting case. So they took a little bit of a different approach. Dartmouth men's basketball team voted, I think it was 13-2. Yes, we do want to unionize. You hear that, you say, what does that mean to unionize? And so what they did was they went through the SEIU and they said, hey, we should be treated just like all the other student employees that are on campus working in the dining hall and so forth. They have a minimum wage that the school has to hit. They have things like, sick leave or insurance or all of the other sort of, liability insurance in case or workman's comp. There are all these things that other student employees at Dartmouth College get. Why are we, who are basically employees of the school, not getting treated the same way? So a lot of times you hear that this financial conversation revolves around giant chunks of TV money and athletes want these big checks. And so the Dartmouth basketball team took a slightly different approach. They said, hey, we just want to sort of sneak into this conversation by being treated like a student dining hall worker. So very interesting case. And the school said, we're not going to honor that. So that is an ongoing situation.
And there's an interesting bit here, too, which is the Ivy Leagues have traditionally not offered athletic scholarship. Again, there's ways around it, right? You offer them room and board, you offer academic scholarship. But they've traditionally not offered athletic scholarship, let alone kind of this compensationary idea. So it's intriguing to me that Dartmouth becomes the first, although, I mean, it's not intriguing when you consider who Dartmouth is. It's intriguing when you consider it's not a program like the University of Texas or like Penn State University that is a major Division I, Power 5 conference. It is an Ivy League school like Dartmouth.
Yeah, it's like of all the schools, there's I think 368 Division I institutions, and it's Dartmouth is the one, though, far from a big money earner when it comes to eyeballs on TV. So that was definitely a head scratcher. But what they're arguing is they're not talking about giant CBS contracts. They're talking about just being treated like, student employees. So I guess that makes sense. But you're right. In the Ivy League, they don't give athletic aid. They give academic aid or need-based aid, and they make sure that any kid that they want, they get taken care of. They are very strong students, to be fair. But just of all schools, why Dartmouth? Why one of the only conferences in the country that doesn't award scholarships? The other being the Pioneer League in football, and the Patriot League, historically was a non-scholarship. They've since changed things, but yeah, why Dartmouth? Pretty funny.
Gordon, let me ask you about the unionization idea. It would allow these athletes to be treated like employees of the school, and to your point, they make the school a lot of money. What does the model look like, though, moving up? Are their coaches their employers, or is the Department of Athletics, the employers? Is there a situation here where if a coach benches a player for not attending class, which we see in some programs, where we want the students have to hit a certain performance level, we're benched for not attending class, does that violate union terms and a coach now can't bench a player? Or maybe a coach benches a player for performance issues or off the field issues that the union said, or the player could file a complaint saying, well, this was actually because of XYZ. Does this make the dynamic of the coach-player relationship different? Is the coach the manager, the boss of the student-athlete, or is that the athletics director? Do we know?
Great question. And look to the professional model. Like I said last episode, a common scare tactic you will hear is money is going to ruin everything. And it's going to totally change everything. Everybody's going to turn into these werewolf-like figures and snarl at each other. And it's going to be unfair treatment. It's going to be hostile, as if we don't have a professional infrastructure in every area of modern American life already. It's going to be like no other business. You're going to have a very professional relationship based on terms that you negotiate up front. This happens in the professional leagues. This happens in law firms. This happens in grocery stores. You agree to terms with your employer, and then you get held to those rules. And yeah, if you violate the terms of whatever agreement you reach, there's a protocol there. And so you bring up a great example. What's going to happen if a coach benches a player for not attending class, or if the entity that governs the sport, I don't know what that's going to be called, benches a player, or they get caught up in a legal case? Is there a ramification? Well, that's something they'll negotiate. That's all that these many lawsuits are asking for is, can we please start treating this like the professional environment that it is? And guess what? In the rest of professional America, everything's fine. It's not an issue. They're not turning into these werewolf people that are at odds with each other. It's an employer-employee relationship. It's professional. It's, you try to keep emotions out of it. And so we're just going to see, it's going to be a slightly different relationship behind the scenes, but Texas A&M football is still going to be Texas A&M football. It's just going to be governed more like the Dallas Cowboys, which everything's fine with them financially. Things are going great in the NFL.
I like how you say financially. I know a lot of Cowboy fans that are taking issue if you're saying everything's fine with the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, that was an interesting example. Maybe I should walk that one back. Yeah, I'm a Bears fan, as you can see from my orange tie here. So yeah, I can commiserate with anybody.
Gordon, thank you for that insight. We're going to cut the break. When we come back, I want to talk about some of these lawsuits that you've mentioned and what we think is going to happen in the future of college athletics. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Face the Issues is produced and recorded in the studios of Lighthouse TV. Positively different.
Welcome back to Face the Issues. Gordon, thank you again for your insights. The unionizing thing is one that you hear about in the news a lot. But there are other court cases that are going to shape where college athletics moves in the next several years. Can you walk us through some of these cases and why they're coming to the court and what issue it is they're trying to resolve?
So, Sam, this is no different than if there were every gravel worker or every musician or every dentist, in a certain part of the country was being treated in a similar manner and being told that you can't make money even though you're worth XYZ. This is no different. Same exact economic fairness standards apply to athletes as they do to dentists and gravel workers. Things like being treated as employees, not as, I'm not going to use an inflammatory term, but an unpaid employee being told what to do. Employee status, the ability to bargain collectively, unionize, the value of attending an institution. So more than just when you're there, you get a check, but actually which school you choose has value. That is not being realized by these athletes. And then the freedom to move around as you see fit, to negotiate with employers, these are all things that every other profession in America enjoys. They enjoy the protection of contracts, the ability to bargain, employee status, and back pay when they are wronged. And so each of those things that I just mentioned, there's a very public lawsuit, very attention-getting topic behind each one of those topics, ranging from the House case, you'll hear that. And a lot of people think it's the House of Representatives. That's the guy's name. His name's Grant House. He was an Arizona State swimmer. This is the $4 billion payment that could be levied, or that the NCAA might have to pay to athletes in back pay for what was owed. You have the USC Pac-12 case against the NLRB, which is basically also called the Johnson case. That's fighting for employee status. You have the Dartmouth case that we just talked about, unionizing. You have the very, very public, or very prominent Tennessee and Virginia Attorney General case versus the NCAA, which is essentially said that you are able to give a kid money for attending the University of Tennessee. And then the transfer restrictions, that's the West Virginia case. There's 6 other states. So I just spewed out a lot there. We could spend half an hour on each one of those things. These are all things that any lawyer or doctor or teacher in America enjoys. All these lawsuits are just saying, why are athletes not able to move freely, have the benefit of contracts, the ability to negotiate, and get back pay when they're wronged?
Gordon, question, a lot of these things, to your point, a lot of professions can do them, but there are also restrictions on their professions. So, for example, the yes, transfer situation, fair. Do we see a situation here where we treat athletes like employees, maybe they can unionize, but then in those contracts, they also have non-competes. So if you come to, yes, say, University of Illinois, you can transfer, and all the NCAA transfer rules apply, but you can get out, you can transfer the next season, maybe you don't have to sit out the season. But can Illinois put in that contract, you're not allowed to transfer to another Big Ten school? Is that something that you see could happen?
Absolutely. That's going to wipe away so much of this turmoil that we have right now, where it's this, every coach. I was talking to a Division I head basketball coach not too long ago, and he's like, my job is so much less fun than it used to be because I have to worry, am I playing a kid too much who's going to leave? Or am I not playing the kid enough and he's going to leave because he's upset? And so their jobs have just been become not fun. And we're seeing a lot of coaches retiring early and things like that. And so what we are seeing is that these the ability to transfer is fundamental to a coach. A coach can leave anytime he wants. That's sort of like America, right? It's like, if you don't like your job, you can leave. But to your point, what in the absence of rules, I'm not going to say regulation, but rules, yes, you do have the Wild West, and it's making these coaches' jobs very not fun. And so the answer is what we have in the professional level. It's a very simple solution to what I just laid out, and it's a contract. All the professional leagues have them. It's not limiting, right? You bargain. The players bargain with the ownership and say, "Hey, here's a framework that we can agree to. I'm going to sign, a 2-year deal or a 4-year deal, and I'm going to have the ability to negotiate for this amount of money. And yeah, that means I'm not going to be able to leave without working out the contract. But that's the beautiful solution in my view is let's put these great instruments that are in place at the professional level in the college landscape, and then this weird Frankenstein we have between amateurism and professional, all of this Wild West sort of vibe we have will be gone when we have contracts. It will simplify everything and everybody will get what they want.
Yeah, that's a good point. So a player signs a 4-year contract and suddenly wants to transfer without cause. You can point back to the contract as opposed to transfer regulations in the NCAA.
Right.
Gordon, let me ask you this: right now, to your point, we're kind of in the growing pains stage of college athletics and NIL and all this stuff. One of the things that gets brought up is for fans that watch this and they watch they're a fan of a college, and then their favorite player transfers or another player transfers, and you see fans split, right? Oh, they'll always be part of the Nebraska family, or they're dead to us. How dare they go over to Iowa when we're the Cornhuskers. How does this affect the fan experience? You said before, Saturdays, you're still going to go to the Northwestern tailgates. You're still going to go watch the games. Look, I'm going to be a Baylor fan until the day I die. But how does this affect the fan experience?
Tremendously. I'm not going to lie. I think that you can have, economic fairness, which is something that I value very highly. I can acknowledge that things are not economically fair, and also not like the fact that athletes are transferring a ton. I think you can believe in both things. I do believe in their freedom to choose where they want to go. But it really has diminished the product, in my opinion, because you used to be able to, there were narratives that would build up over the course of 4 years. You would have Patrick Ewing at Georgetown for a long time, and people knew who Patrick Ewing was at Georgetown. He was a nationally famous figure. And we're seeing that what's happening is we have this minor league system where you get 20 points a game at Davidson, for example, if you're Steph Curry. Nowadays, he would never stay at Davidson. He would have transferred to a bigger school, or Seth Curry's brother. I think he got 20 points a game when he was at Liberty, and then he transferred to Duke. We're going to see much more of a Seth Curry, not a Steph Curry situation. So what that does is it ruins, in my opinion, it really diminishes the narrative, because you flip on the TV and you see, you're like, it's almost like it was a pickup game where they picked sides before the game, and you're like, wait, that's the kid that was at Creighton, but wasn't he at McNeese State before that? And then he was the kid that was the McDonald's All-American from Texas. And it's, in my opinion, it diminishes my enjoyment of it. But I think the kids should be able to they should be allowed to go wherever they want. Now, I think that what solves that, like I just said, is contracts, so that they can test their value. They can get fair market value, but they agreed to stay for a certain amount of time so that these programs aren't literally picking sides every year. I think that is a really nice compromise where we can have economic fairness, and also we can have player movement, but at a reasonable rate that both sides can agree to, because it can't be the old model where athletes are not getting the value they deserve, and it can't be Wild West, because that's just not good for anybody in the long term. So I think contracts really help us achieve that balance there.
Gordon, how long do you think it is going to be till we kind of have some settling of this landscape? Obviously, we've got 5 major Supreme Court cases coming down, or at least court cases coming down. And we know growing pains is part of any change, right? But how long is it going to take, do you think, before we see some of the settling in this world?
Great question. I wrote in my notes here, I think 2025 will be the year of the sweeping change. We've got all these cases I mentioned, the House case for back pay, the employee status case with USC, the unionization case with Dartmouth, Tennessee and Virginia fighting for the ability to get money to attend, and then the West Virginia transfer rule case. These are all happening right now. There have been injunctions granted. So, for example, with Tennessee and Virginia, right now it is open season. If you want to transfer, you've transferred twice already. You are temporarily granted the right to transfer wherever you want this coming season. And so it's been open season, and that just solidified it right now. So I think what's going to happen is a lot of these, they're deliberating. Politicians are figuring out which way the wind is blowing. But eventually there will be judgments that are issued. And as the Supreme Court is shouting to us, and even news outlets, when was the last time the Southern Poverty Law Center and Fox News agreed on a topic? I mean, that's what we're seeing. I was doing some research, and I'm reading, articles from people that would never be talking. I mean, when on earth would New Mexico and Mississippi put legislation? They're 2 of the first states to allow high schoolers to earn money with NIL. In what situation would we see both polar, opposites in society agree on this issue? So what I'm trying to say is We're past the groaning phase. We're in the cracking phase where the system is cracking. And I predicted in 2025, those pieces are going to blow up and we're going to have essentially a minor league system. And we're going to have all of the fairness, in my opinion, of a professional infrastructure. And I think that's going to be great because it's going to end a lot of this. You hear people at bars or grocery stores or at church, it's crazy. Everything is crazy with college sports. I think a lot of the craziness will subside once we have contracts.
And we'll bring you back at that point. And again, tell our viewers that, once again, you called it. Gordon, don't go away. We'll be right back.
Face the Issues is produced and recorded in the studios of Lighthouse TV. Positively different.
Welcome back to Face the Issues. Gordon, thank you again for joining us, for your insights on these issues. I want to leave with this question. With all the changes coming, with the new money that can be made now, the ability to go where you want to go, what advice do you give to these young men and women in high school and college, these young student athletes, as they kind of embark on this very new and sometimes lucrative world that they can step into?
Adam Cushing, former Eastern Illinois head football coach, currently at Texas A&M. He said something profound that sticks with me to this day, which is whenever there's a major shift, even if it's negative, he was fired as head coach at Eastern Illinois. He said to me, or he said, what does this make possible? Whenever there's a seismic shift, there's an opportunity there to separate yourself from the way things are going, to do something that change, even if it's negative, now enables you to do. And so what do I mean specifically? The way culture is going, and I was, with some high school friends who are now, one's a baseball agent, one's a high school football coach, and they were saying, gosh, players just don't care about winning like they used to, or, getting in the huddle in a neat little line. It used to be, hey, get in line. Let's go. Let's do this the right way. And so what I'm hearing, and people like Nick Saban are saying this, that he's really off put by it's only money. That's all players care about. I'm not saying that's necessarily true, but if that's the sort of meta direction that culture is going, you have an opportunity to differentiate yourself, to go against that. Every time you're applying for a job, tell a story about how you're different from your society. Your employers are going to be reading your application, thinking you're just, a Gen Z or a millennial who's part of this shift towards only caring about money. Differentiate yourself. Leverage that. Make that your brand. Be somebody who cares about character, and you will separate yourself. Every job interview, you're fighting a stack of resumes that's this big. Okay. And you need to figure out, how do you get to the top of the stack? How do you get evaluated? Make yourself different. So while everybody else is saying, hey, coach, how much NIL money am I going to get? You can have that conversation in a professional manner, but think about how you can go against the grain. And I guarantee you're going to improve your chances of getting a job and getting ahead in life.
That's great advice. Gordon, thank you so much for joining us. As always, it's a pleasure. And thanks to each of you for tuning in as well. We hope to see you again right back here next week. Until then, my name is Sam Chen. On behalf of all of us here at Face the Issues, thank you and good night.